In woodwork and furniture making, you will be required to read and make working drawings, which can also be known as technical drawings. Working drawings provide information to produce individual parts and can show how a full project fits together. There are three main types of working drawings: an individual part drawing, which will show all the dimensions and the joints required for that individual part; a full assembly drawing, which we have in front of us, which shows the full project put together; and an exploded drawing, which will show some clarity on how each of the parts fit together. As part of a working drawing, a cutting list may also be included. A cutting list is a very important part of a working drawing, as it includes an accurate list of all the parts required to make the project. In a cutting list, you would be expected to see the part name or number, the quantity, as in how many parts of each piece of wood do we need to cut to that size, the material that the wood is going to be made out of, the length of the wood needing cut, the breadth of the wood needing cut, and the thickness of the wood. Now, in order to work out the length and the breadth of a piece of wood, the length would normally be the way in which the grain is going. In the case where there's no grain, for example, a manufactured wood like MDF, the length is usually the longest part. Now, in terms of the thickness of the wood, this is usually an even number. So, for example, it may be 18 millimeters or 20 millimeters. In this case, we're going to fill out a cutting list for this bookcase. Now, in terms of the top, there are only one piece for the top of the project. So in the quantity, I would look at typing 1. For the material, in this case, we are going to use pine. Now it comes to working out the length of this piece of material. In order to read a working drawing, the easiest thing for us to do is find the part and take a note of the dimension lines and what number that leads to. So in this case, it leads to 230. So the length is going to be 230. When it comes to the breadth or the width of the piece of wood, again, we're going to go to our end elevation, which is the end of the project, and we're going to follow the lines up for the width till we find our number, which is going to be 150. And then the thickness of the wood, we can see again, if we follow the lines across, thickness is going to be 20. Now we come on to the side of the wood. Now the side, there are two sides to our project, or bookcase, and they're both the exact same size. So in this case, we need 2 pieces of wood cut. I'm going to keep the material the same. And now we need to work out the length of the material. Now in this case, we have been given an overall size. So from the bottom of our bookcase to the top of our bookcase, we have a size of 695. However, the side of the bookcase does not go from the bottom to the very top, and we do have a slightly shorter piece of wood in the middle. Now, if we look at our end elevation, we can see that the thickness of the top and the bottom are both 20 millimeters. So what we need to do is take our 695 and we need to deduct 20 for the bottom and 20 from the top. So in the case of our length, we're going to take 695 and we're going to deduct 40, so we're going to be left with 655. the breadth, we can see that the overall width of our bookcase is the exact same, so the breadth's going to stay at 150. And the thickness of our material is also going to stay at 20. Now we know that it's 20 because we can see that from the edge of our bookcase, so from the edge here to the edge here is 190, and the inside here to here is 150. So if we take them away from each other, we're left with 40, which means that this part to this part must be 20. So 20 on this side and 20 on this side. Next, we need to do the shelves. So in this case, there are 2 shelves. So my quantity is going to be 2. Material, I'm going to keep the same. Now the length of the shelves, as mentioned previously, so from this side here to this side here is 150. It's going to have the same width and the same thickness. Last but not least, we have to do the base. So again, if we follow the lines, we can see that the quantity of the base is 1. In regards to the material, again, we're going to just keep the same. So we're going to write pine. Now the length of the base, we've followed the lines previously when we were doing the other drawings, so we can follow the lines down and we've got 250. Breadth's going to stay the same. And if we look at the end elevation, the thickness is the same. So by using the information seen on our working drawing, we've been able to mark out our cutting list for us to prepare the wood in order for making the project. It's really important that we try and get the cutting list as accurate as possible, as we don't want to cut the wood too large, which means it will have a lot of waste wood. And we also don't want to cut it too small, which means that we wouldn't be able to use the wood. In terms of materials, you can look at changing the materials depending on the project. You may also want to change something different from the sides, which would mean that there would be a completely different part. But overall, you're just using the information given to produce the cutting list. And here is another example of a working drawing. So again, this is an assembled drawing. And to use the information and all the dimensions given to work out the length, the breadth, and the thickness of the material. And it is just a case of picking apart and following the dimension lines to work out the thickness of each part.